Hi students, let's talk about the texture assignment. So the same approach, you'll be creating another 16 thumbnails and choosing your best 3 roughs. So I am including a couple of more examples on this one. So when I think about, if you're thinking, I just don't have enough ideas to create texture, I really fall back to the situation of like, look at the walls in your house, look at the patterns on the windows. But one way that I really get a lot of inspiration for texture would be actually outside, like sitting in my backyard. Like if you're looking at a tree from far away, you're gonna see the texture on the bark. Now think of it this way: if you approach the tree and look closely at that bark, you're going to see additional texture or different texture than when you see it from far away. We all know what bark looks like, but have you really gone up to it and really taken a look? You're going to see little tiny lines that are probably going to go in a circle, right? And then you may see some other things than that. Look at that. Um, let's say that you have a quilt or a bedspread on your bed. Look at the pattern on the stitching. That will give you another inspiration of texture. As an example, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at my dog's crate. And then there's little tiny circles at the top of the crate so they can see out and they can breathe. And they're little oval circles. Well, that's another form of texture. Yes, they're circled and made out of line like everything else, but it's a repetitive pattern. Look at your dresser. If you have any art on the wall, just look at if you have like a watercolor or an oil painting or even just a print, look at what you actually see in the painting. And that actually creates texture. It creates a pattern, right? So really think about, there's so many different places that you can take a look, that you can see example of texture. And the example provided here, like at the bottom right, if you've taken any art class, that's a pretty good example of pointillism. And you can see again how about the size of the circle, the small versus the big. And also what that gives it gives it depth, and it makes, if all of the circles were the exact same size, you would get the effect of texture, but it would be an entirely different look. Here with the squigglies, Barry is the same squiggly over and over and over again. That's an example of texture. Cross hatching is an example of texture. I can't think of the name of the fabric, but there's a fabric, especially that they use in wedding dresses. Taffeta, maybe it is. That if you look at it from far away, you can see it's a heavy fabric, but once you get close to it, you can kind of see some of the stitching. Actually, it feels 3D. Doesn't feel completely smooth. And in this pattern on the left, another looser organic lines, not as tight as the ones down here, but that also gives you an example of pattern. I mean of texture. And I included this student work from Susanna's work here, and what I wanted to show you, like, here's an example. You probably got that inspiration from a tree. Here's an example of pointillism similar to this one. However, look at the other approach he took here on the top right. So it's like you think about how you create texture. You don't have to worry about creating shadows or a lot of depth in this, because these are only the thumbnails. Now, when you go up to the roughs, and you can see her roughs here, like look at this example right here with the squares, the diamonds. Look how it translates from here to here. She put a little bit more shadow in this one, in the first one, and she put a line around the square, but she made it simpler, right? If you look at this one, she actually went, when it got larger, she actually gave it a little bit more detail. You can kind of see like the patterns for the size of the thumbnail are a little bit bigger here, and they're a little bit smaller here. Now you can see here at the bottom right, that's pretty much a very similar translation, but it is, again, the spacing between the lines is a little bit more open, even though it's pretty close together. So you can see how all of that is an example of texture. You're just gonna have to play with it. If you the one thing that I always recommend is always go out and find inspiration all the time. I mean, you can look online, but I mean, literally, like taking a walk. Sometimes, I mean, I do that every day, and you're looking around, and even when you're walking, you see the way that the light hits the pavement, and there's shadow and there's a pattern, and you're like, okay, that's cool. I hadn't seen that. Or even like when you think of texture, you like think of grass, also, right? How would you communicate that? And there's a baseball field nearby. I look at the patterns on the bleachers, the patterns on the fence, the diamond. I mean, there's so much inspiration that you can get just by walking outside, and not necessarily by getting all of your inspiration from browsing at different websites. So I hope you find this helpful, and I cannot wait to see your work. I'll talk to you later. Bye.